Well, they got somebody. All right, so you already know what time it is. Apparently, they have a suspect that they believe is the actual shooter. I have my doubts, but we don't have all the evidence. But the evidence that we do have, it screams, I wanted to get caught. Not only that, it could be a statement being made, possibility he's not the shooter. How do you connect the evidence? If he is the shooter, how do you make it fit? Because even if he is, and he did commit the crime, you still got to prove it, you guys. And just because you might have some faces, you got some stolen IDs, you got a gun, that still doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but they are breaking down this individual, Luigi Mangione, okay? He's Sicilian background, wealthy family. Things aren't adding up, okay? And things are looking real suspicious. I'm gonna give you my theories. I'm explaining to you how you can connect this evidence and how you can't connect it. This is looking real interesting. So before we dive into all the deep details, you guys, I'm kind of give you my thoughts. Please, if you're new to the channel, like, comment, share. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you as a subscriber. Anyways, we're gonna play a clip from Fox. They're kind of breaking down some of the basics. And then there's a gentleman that comes up. He claims to be an expert. I doubt it. He said some foolishness. I'm gonna give you my opinion, guys. You're talking to a real expert here, okay? So let's hear what they have to say. And then I'm gonna give you my thoughts, because there's some theories I need to clear with you guys, and I wanna know your honest opinion. So let's dive into it.
The suspected murderer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, caught and arrested yesterday after 5 days on the run. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is facing several charges in New York. He's been charged with second-degree murder, along with 3 other gun-related charges. In Pennsylvania, he faces 5 more charges, including forgery, carrying a gun without a license, and lying about his identity to officers. His arrest coming after a tip from a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. An employee called the police after recognizing the suspect, who authorities say was carrying a gun believed to be the one used to shoot Thompson. Authorities say the gun may have been 3D printed. He was also found with fake IDs and writings expressing ill will toward corporate America. So who is Luigi Mangione? We know he is a 26-year-old originally from Maryland, although is believed to have been living in Hawaii prior to the shooting. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's and master's degree in engineering, and he was part of the Honor Society for Electrical and Computer Engineering. Mangione is being held without bail this morning in Pennsylvania, in a jail in Pennsylvania, while awaiting extradition to New York.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it there. Okay, what all do we hear? Okay, he got picked up at McDonald's. Could you imagine? He got picked up at McDonald's. An employee saw him, recognized his face. That was plastered on the news, called the police. The police showed up. Apparently, the officer was very calm, cool, collected. All right, and again, let me just shout out to New York for putting this amazing investigation together and following these leads. So they find him. He's sitting down. He's probably eating a little cheese McNugget, whatever. And the officer stops him, asking him to remove his mask. Said, hey, were you the guy from New York? He starts getting fidgety. He detains him. He asks for ID. He gave him that fraudulent New Jersey ID. That's what he got arrested under. And then from there, of course, everything unfolded. So they said he had, according to them just now, she said there was, I guess, multiple different IDs, fraudulent IDs. So I don't know all the details. They didn't really go into specifics, but okay, so let me just put that out there. What they didn't say, though, he also was found with about, I think, maybe $10,000 in cash. 2,000 of those currencies were foreign, possibly. So that's kind of what I read. I don't know how much of that is actually confirmed. He did have his passport on him. That's what gave his actual real information, right? He's never been arrested before. Ivy League background. He's college educated. Doesn't necessarily mean much here in the United States, but this is kind of his background. Wealthy family, family backs. His family's from, I think, Sicily, right? They own businesses here. He has a net worth of about like $5 million, right? So this kid is he's oozing entitlement, okay? But let's go into what this discussion is important that they're having, because they're going to point out a couple things. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Now is former NYPD lieutenant and former law enforcement professor at Pace University, Darren Porcher. Darren, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Your reaction?
Thanks for having me, Maria. I thought that he would have been arrested much sooner, but fortunately, he's been taken into custody. And this is a testament to the symbiotic relationship between police, community, and also the media.
Let me just stop him right here. He's already off to a bad start, you guys. He's assuming that this is the actual shooter, right? He's assuming that this is the person who actually shot and killed the CEO. You don't know that, all right? And I'm explaining to you why you don't know that, right? You can't be overzealous with these statements. This is an alleged. He's a suspect. And until further evidence proves differently, you guys, you got to be careful when you make these type of statements. So I just wanted to call that out. When I heard him say that, I already knew he was off to a bad start. But it gets interesting. Let's go.
Media, because the media did a tremendous job in getting that blast out as it relates to the picture of when he removed or lowered his mask in that hostel, which gave us a display of what his face looked like. So now the prosecution is going to move forth with the agenda of how they're going to gain a conviction. We already have the arrest, but the conviction is going to hinge on us gaining the witnesses, such as the two people that were on the street when he actually shot the CEO, as well as that hotel clerk that where the subject displayed his face in particular.
Well, I mean,
okay. Two separate issues. One of them is completely irrelevant. Okay, here's why. You have to connect. Here's the thing. When the shooter carried out the murder, okay, he had a mask on. He was wearing a completely different outfit. You can't see his face. It happened before daylight. Okay, we're talking 6 in the morning. Of course, you have witnesses at the scene. They're not going to be able to make out his face on a lineup. Okay, let's just keep it real. They're just not going to be able to. The second witness saw the figure of a man wearing all black walking off. They're not going to be able to identify his face. That's the first problem, okay? Those two witnesses at the scene are not even worth even keeping around. At this point, they saw the murder, but they can't identify who did it. If you have any gaps in time, okay, when it comes to this case right here, if they can't physically track him consistently to where they've captured his full face or have some type of real strong evidence attaching him to the crime scene, you guys, he's gonna walk. All right, he's gonna walk. And I'm gonna tell you why. So I hear what he's saying, but what he's not telling you is that this is still wide open. All right, this is still wide open. Those witnesses don't mean anything. The lady at the hostel doesn't really mean much, right? Unless they can actually tie. Okay, let me just say this. He was wearing different clothes, okay? The shooter was not wearing what the gentleman in the hostel was wearing. The green jacket, the green hoodie, took his mask off, who they're saying is, well, we know it's this guy. He had the same New Jersey ID that he used for the hostel, so we know that's him, okay? The shooter was first identified coming out of like the subway at Starbucks, okay? That morning he bought coffee, got something to eat. He had like some water or something like that. I don't know if he bought coffee, but he got a bottle of water. He got some energy bars. He had on a white book bag, okay? Or the book bag was like a tan. It was a light color book bag. And then, but at the hostel, he had a green jacket with the hood. He had the mask. He also had on he had a black book bag, okay? So those distinctions really, really matter when it comes to hitting trial and really going over this thing in a court, okay? It matters a lot, okay? It matters a lot. So I just wanted to put that out there just so you guys can plant that seed when we have this more lengthy conversation. All right, let's get back.
do we understand what the motive is at this point? I mean, it's just extraordinary when you look at this kid's background. The suspect was an Ivy Leaguer, anti-capitalist leanings, coming from a prominent family, and they own country clubs. I mean, what do we know about his background, in your view, that informs us about a motive?
This is more of an aberration than the norm, and I see strong parallels between the subject in this case and Brian Kohlberger, who killed the college students in Idaho. These are people.
This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Trying to compare this situation to Brian Kohlberger, again, he's already admitting, he's already trying to say that this guy is the shooter, right? He's already saying this guy is a killer. And you're comparing him to Brian Kohlberger. I think it's really interesting because absolutely not. Two separate type of cases, and the motives and reasoning behind them is not because one is a serial killer and they just like to murder. When you hear his explanation, it's just quite ridiculous. I can't believe he got on here and actually said that. It makes him look, you know, not knowledgeable.
People that did not have a criminal record, but they were fascinated with the aspect of committing murder. And that's what manifested on the streets of New York when we had this violent suspect that killed the CEO of United Healthcare.
Well, I mean,
okay, and again, he's talking out the corner of his neck, and his neck doesn't know what dimension he's actually in. To make a bold statement like that, dude, you don't even, I could see if you're actually working the case and you have all the evidence in front of you, you have a statement from the suspect telling you that, hey, listen, I salivate over the idea of taking a life, right? That's not this case. The motive is more towards leaning, is what they're leaning towards, that this guy he's like this woke activist who's anti, corporate entity, whatever. And he's kind of, what they're trying to paint him as, and even what the public is painting him as, is like this Robin Hood figure, right? Like he's really for the people. This is justice for the people because they've been abused and oppressed by these corporate oligarchs, right? Like that's kind of like what they're leaning toward as far as their speculation. This guy comes on here talking about he's thirsty for murder, right? Like, dude, some people they just want to sound like they know what they're talking about. But anyways, all right, let's get back in it.
do we know in terms of his level of sophistication in all of this? I mean, look, there was a silencer on the gun. It appeared when he first took the first shot, it got stuck and he fixed it. Do you think this is a professional or an amateur?
This is clearly an amateur. When we first saw footage of the shooting, it appeared as if this was a professional. But when we see the series of missteps that he participated in throughout the course of his entry and exit from New York, as well as the homicide, it was clear that this was an amateur. He left behind a treasure trove of DNA evidence, and coupled with the footage that we captured and with security cameras. So this is someone I want to say he didn't know what he was doing, but he believed that he knew what he was doing.
My only issue is, again, he's not on the team, so he's making these definitive statements. Here's what I will say. It's too early to say, okay? What we can say is that there's a possibility that these are red herrings. There's a possibility that the suspect who did commit the shootings, intentionally planted those evidence. You don't meticulously put all this together and then you leave a phone, you leave the bottle, you leave a bag full of Monopoly money. Like, everything's been very, very intentional. You get into a cab that you know has a camera, you look directly at it, you take your mask off inside the building where you know has a camera. So there's a lot of intentionality behind this. It's too early to try to be, I think I figured it out, right? I'm over here playing, go gadget detective, I know it all, and you don't have a clue as to what's going on. You guys, listen, what I'm going to actually give you is real insight onto how these things actually work and what you should be paying attention to. It's way too early, right? Even though we don't have all the evidence, we have enough to know that this guy, the suspect, planned this out thoroughly. He's leaving a message behind. He has an agenda. He has a specific goal in mind. He carried out the goal, and now they are searching for someone. The question is it the right person? And you still have to attach him at the scene of the crime, okay? You have people who have been picked up plenty of times and have not been the suspect, okay? They've been picked up under the assumption that is they look like, they sound like, walk like, and the FBI and the police have gotten it wrong, you guys, okay? Don't let me start listing names, okay? We had that guy who did the bombing, the Olympic bombing or whatever. That guy, I can't even remember his name. They made a whole documentary about him, okay? Everybody swore up and down it was him, and it wasn't him, All right, I can tell you plenty of cases where people have been picked up and it was not them. All right, so you still got to be careful, and you still got to make sure that you follow the evidence and don't let the evidence follow you. You let the evidence speak for the suspect. You don't speak for the evidence, okay? That's a big mistake people get, especially in these high-profile cases. Anyways, all right, let's dive back.
And what does his fate look like in your view?
His fate looks like life imprisonment. And what the great thing is, the NYPD detectives, along with a prosecutor from New York City, have actually sat down with this individual, and they're amassing any and everything to ensure that they're able to reach the status of beyond a reasonable doubt, which would be a conviction in a criminal trial. There's just too much. We have the firearm. We actually have the homicide on video. We have him in possession of the fake ID that he used at the hostel when he stayed in New York. So we just have so much, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, don't forget those.
You have the fake ID that you can tie to him, okay? You got to connect the fake ID to the shooter, okay? You got to still connect that. I don't know what they've connected so far, but they've been very open about sharing the whole damn case with us, and so far, that's not a connection that they made, okay? This guy is being connected because of his face was revealed. They followed up at the hostel. They followed up with the Greyhound. Okay, so they made the connection there. But again, that's not connecting him as the shooter. Okay? It's not connecting him as the shooter. No witnesses at the scene saw his face, can identify him. I assure you 100% they cannot. And they have DNA, but they didn't say what kind of DNA they had on the bottle. Okay? You still gotta put that piece together. So, again, it's a little too early. It's way too early. They have a gun they found on him. The gun still has to match. The rounds still have to match. There's no guarantee. It's a ghost gun, first of all, meaning that he could have destroyed that gun and printed another one. You don't know, right? You don't know. He ends up, let me say this. Well, let me say it now before I forget. Here's the issue. We don't know what we don't know as of yet, okay? But the purpose of this video is to get you guys to think differently, because again, you're dealing with someone who's an expert in this field, okay? And I'm going to give you information and get you to look at this thing a little bit different, question certain things, that way you can kind of understand maybe what they're looking for, how they're going to try to connect the pieces. Here's a possibility, right? Again, if I'm looking at this case, I'm on the case, I'm looking at it. The first thing I want to do, obviously, I want to test the gun, because again, you got to tie the gun to the crime. People are like, he had the same gun. Okay, if it's a ghost gun, they're saying it's 3D printed. That means it was made. Okay, it was made in somebody's house, garage, basement. He's been gone for it's taken him 5 days. He could have discarded the suspect could have discarded the actual murder weapon, okay? Printed a new exact one. What does that mean? That means with that weapon, if you try to match the bullet to that gun, it's not going to match. If those things don't match and he has a gun and it's the exact same gun, you guys, it's going to look real silly. All right. What's the other information they have? They have a water bottle. They said they had a partial print on it. That's going to be very important, very crucial, because that partial print matches. The question is going to be, where was the bottle found at? Okay, was it at the crime scene, or was it somewhere in the area where he was at? You guys, just because he's in New York City when the shooting took place doesn't mean he's the shooter, okay? So there's a lot of things that go into this. Circumstantial evidence is a thing, but you need physical, concrete evidence that attaches them to the crime, okay? We don't know where the phone was picked up at. People said the phone was found near somewhere. How are you going to tie the phone to Luigi, okay? How are you going to tie the bottle to Luigi? Say you found the bottle and the phone near Luigi's hostel where he's at. Okay, that's fine. I don't know where the information was found at, but I just want to give you just a better understanding that though you may have found these articles, you still have to make it make sense. Okay, so say his print is on the bottle. Where was the bottle located? If I'm an attorney, I'm looking at this like, okay, well, how do you place the bottle at the scene of the crime? That's going to be the most difficult one because we don't know where the bottle was found at. They haven't said it yet. Okay, the book bag was found inside Central Park, full of money in it. Okay, fake money, monopoly money. Okay, well, is there any DNA trace evidence on there that they can use? We don't know. They haven't said. So this is what we're dealing with. The ID, again, it's not as relevant because we don't know. Again, when this whole thing started, they tracked him coming out of the subway. So unless they got him coming out the hostel wearing the same outfit as the shooter, it's going to be hard to make that connection. You guys, he could have had a book bag, the second book bag, maybe concealed somewhere where he went, where there's no cameras, and he changed clothes. Okay, say he left the hostel wearing one thing, okay, and then he changed in a different thing. Well, that matters. You got to be able to connect those pieces because, again, these are the arguments that are going to come up in court. So, what's the other issue? I already pointed out he had on the green he had on the green at the hostel. He had on the black the day of the shooting. So how they connect that's going to be one thing. So we don't know how that's going to play out. You guys, what are my theories? Okay, what are my theories? Here's one of our biggest issues. Okay, people are celebrating this guy. All right, this is, again, I keep talking about the decline in morality in this country. All right, people are calling him a hero. You guys, he's not a hero. Okay, he's not Robin Hood. This is what they're trying to kind of make him out to be, like this Robin Hood. He's standing up for the people who've been taken advantage of by these greedy and disgusting, fraudulent corporations. Now, granted, I don't disagree with people's sentiment as there's a lot of greedy corporate people in this country, as we know. But that is not the way we go about solving these issues. You have issues with policies. You have issues with, of course, these people and these 1%ers, right? You have a problem with them. You don't go around assassinating them, okay, because you don't like what they're doing or you don't like how they're managing their company. That's something that we definitely don't want to go down that alley, okay? We don't want to take that avenue as a country because that's going to send us through a dark period where people think that just because you feel strongly about something and you disagree with how somebody else does it, that gives you a license to kill. For some reason in this country, we've lost the understanding and the true definition and meaning of what a hero is, right? You have people who are choking people out in the subway being called heroes, right? So again, we don't really know how to actually truly define like that concept of virtue, justice, and sacrifice, discipline, responsibility, account. Like these things are becoming blurred, right? So we got to be careful with that. We can't pick and choose based on how we feel or because we feel strong about something and somebody does something and to get a particular result. That result is not positive, right? This man had a wife, he had children. This was not the answer at all, assuming that he didn't fake his death, right? That's another speculation theory of mine. But what else? What else is a unique theory behind this? You guys, people talking about he's from this Ivy League, he's educated, he comes from this wealthy background. Why would he possibly do this? Our country's universities, it has become a cesspool of indoctrinating kids, right? These kids today, these students, these young adults going through college, it's almost like they're becoming brainwashed. Our universities are brainwashing kids. They're turning them into these hyper liberal, woke psychopaths, okay? And this type of indoctrination is causing people to it's using this, it's psychological warfare, right? It's gaslighting, it's fear mongering. All these things are taking place, and now these kids come out and they're like, oh, our country is doomed, and someone has to do something about it. And they come out here and they try to take matters in their own hands, and they do it in a way that's obviously destructive. Okay, we've seen this countless of times, and they have these manifestos. They're very delusional, and here we are, right? Again, if this is the case, they said they found a manifesto on him about his gripes against the medical industry or the healthcare industry. I get it. Okay, I get it. But there's definitely a better way to go about getting this done. These guys are acting like we're living in Mad Max, right? Where it's just a free for all, right? This is like kind of like the Book of Eli, like all is just apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, and we're just out here just trying to make it work. Okay, that's not the case. But this is truly a direction we can go in when we start blurring the lines between good, bad, justice, injustice, good versus evil, and we just kind of blur that, okay? It becomes dangerous, and it's a slippery slope. And so we have citizens who are now really leaning towards this mob justice. We've seen a lot of Black Lives Matter and things like that, where they believe that tearing and destroying is a way to get your point across, right? And then it goes back, 3 months later, and nothing has changed, nothing was accomplished. So a lot of these kids are getting radicalized, right, through the universities. Another problem, another theory that I believe, that I know is true, is that you have these cult-like followings and groups online that these kids they get involved in. They start to align themselves with these sick, twisted ideologies online. Some of these online groups, you guys, I'm just gonna be honest with you, are probably ran and managed by the CIA. All right, I'm pretty sure that our government has a lot to do with this radicalizing of a lot of these kids, and then pointing them in a particular direction, giving them the information and the resources and the tools needed to carry out a particular to execute a particular objective. All right. Our government is just not a stranger of psychological warfare. They're quite the experts at it. You can take a few of these guys and send them to a country, and they'll destabilize the entire country. And they use those same type of tactics in psychological warfare on their own people, okay? And of course, if you really do the research, you know what's going on. They have these buttons, you guys, they can switch. They can turn these sleeper cells on and off. You have cases of people waking up and like, damn, I don't remember any of that. And then now their face is plastered all on the news, and they're trying to figure out how we got here. All the evidence and information is sitting in their pocket. They're trying to figure out where it came from. Okay, they can't remember last week. A lot of patsies out here. That's why this whole thing just seems a little too coincidental. And lastly, what I will say is, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, say this suspect is the actual shooter. Okay. You still got to prove it. And sometimes you have these cases where these suspects are really, really smart. They really put all this together, a big conundrum, a whole puzzle, right? This is a huge puzzle that they put together, and then they want to get caught. They want to get caught, and they want you to be able to prove that they did it. You know what this reminds me of, though? This reminds me of Law Abiding Citizen. If you guys are familiar with that movie with Jamie Foxx. And what is his name? Russell? Is it Russell Crowe? You guys remember that movie? Listen, if you have not seen this movie, this is kind of where my mind is going right now, all right, with this particular case. Why do I say that? In this movie, Law Abiding Citizen, Jamie Foxx plays an attorney. He apprehends this guy that he knows. All the evidence suggests that this guy is, he's the killer of this, of these, he committed these murders. Well, as they start putting everything together, kind of find out the evidence doesn't even really attach to him, right? To a point to where it's like, he did it, but you can't prove he did it, and he gets off, right? But then he admits, right? He admits and confesses, and they take him in anyways. But if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. But this is kind of where, this is my final theory at this point, okay, is that this guy is on some law-abiding citizen type stuff. And it's like, they arrested him. They're trying to interview him. He's not talking. He's going to make you do the work. it's kind of like my last theory. It's coming off as if he wants you to prove that he did it, and that though a lot of the circumstantial evidence stacks against him, no physical evidence does. And if that's the case, guess what? They're gonna have to let him go, you guys. So anyways, let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like this is suspicious? Does it seem too good to be true? Does it feel like he wanted to be caught? Does it seem like this might be it's a little suspicious, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Like, comment, share, subscribe. New to the channel, please join us. Love to have you here. And with that, you guys, good night. God bless.